On the biggest MMORPG server in Minecraft, there seems to be no lore. It's a game that seemed to have no backstory. It appeared to just be a bunch of floating islands, NPCs, and endless grinding. And if you've played dungeons before, you are probably familiar with items. Dungeons spawns in items on the ground, which you can pick up and sell for extreme profit. But there's just one detail everyone seems to overlook. Journal entries. Most people just ignore them, because they don't really benefit you. Everyone is in a hurry to get the new Floor 6 speedrun, and to get Dungeons XP. And as a wise man once said, when you slow down, you can see the details life has to offer. That wise man is me, by the way. So I stopped to take a look at these journal entries. Little did I know, I would be entering a rabbit hole of Hypixel Skyblock lore. There are about 100 journal pages, categorized into 14 different journals. And one man seems to have all of them. On the forums, there is a man named Too Spicy, and he was kind enough to share these journal entries with the public. And these are even in chronological order. Big props to this man for being swag enough to categorize them. I will only be mentioning details that actually matter. And also I won't read it to you like it's a bedtime story. I'll just summarize the important pages. If you want to read the actual pages, click on the link in the description. Let's get started. Our story starts on the Skyblock year 1138, with the journal, The Apprentice. There was a calamity, an unknown event, that led to thousands of people dying, leaving many people as orphans. A 17-year-old orphan struggles to be a mage at the Mage Academy, a group never mentioned before in Hypixel Skyblock. This man's name is Necron, widely known as the boss of the 10th floor, the Wither Lord. But let's not get too ahead of ourselves, because he's just your average man for now. He is on the verge of being expelled because apparently, his teachers describe him as their worst student. And he has a strange attraction towards dark magic. He believes it will help him find out what happened to his parents, and it will cleanse the world. You can probably see where this is going. Bad guy alert. In The Apprentice, Part 2, a new character is also introduced on the year 1138. He was taken in by the Dean of the Mage Academy after being orphaned. But that probably doesn't matter. They are not in a very healthy relationship. It is strongly believed that he is Scarf, the Floor 2 boss. He believes he is being held back. And he is capable of much more. Suddenly, a piece of paper is slid under his door. You can probably see where this is going. It was a forbidden scroll, one that the teachers refused to teach to him. Usually kept in a vault locked by magic. Magic this and magic that. Whatever it was, it's nearly impossible to get a scroll from out of there. So how did it get out? Why did they give it to him? Who even was it? After a quick look, he discovered it to be an invisibility spell, allowing him to do breaking and entering, to get those forbidden scrolls, and giving him more power than he could imagine. But he is quite reluctant to do this, not very willing to go into the vault. A few years later, the Watcher, which is the guy from the Dungeon Blood Room, is first documented. Originating from above the Hub Mountain, from what is apparently an old dimensional breach, which was opened during the Calamity. From there, the journals are discontinued for 400 years, but it doesn't mean nothing happened. Somewhere in between, a Wither King is introduced, whose name is K-Man. And Necron's description is that he is the right-hand man of the Wither King. They, along with some Wither skeletons, attack a castle, which is most likely the ruins you see in the hub. So Necron turns from failing mage student into an evil dark magic person. The Watcher came from the 4th dimension on top of the hub mountain. They gang up with a supreme Wither force that came out of nowhere, and they beat up the hub castle. Case closed. Just kidding. The hub castle existed 400 years after the first attack by the Wither forces, surviving at a great cost. A battle in which tens of thousands of soldiers died is referenced. Maybe these two are related. And maybe that's why the giant graveyard and catacomb was created, to store all the dead bodies of soldiers. We pick up our story when a normal villager discovers a zombie in the catacombs, for the first time in 400 years. She decides to report this to a group that is never mentioned anywhere else in Skyblock. The Mage Association. Probably related to the Mage Academy mentioned 400 years ago. As a result, the king decides it's time to deal with the new undead forces before the other way around happens. So he sends a group of 50 soldiers and 3 mages, led by General Dan and the mage Solomon, to go into the catacombs and investigate what is going on down there. As they go down each floor, Bonzo, Scarf, and the professor are nowhere to be seen, meaning they arrived in the dungeon way later. They deal with especially strong zombies and wither skeletons. Notice how a lot of the zombies in dungeons are soldiers while the graveyard is most likely filled with the graves of dead soldiers. They arrive in floor 3, and that's as far as they want to go. They arrive in what is described to be a giant room with water pipes running into large pools, which sounds a lot like the floor 3 boss room. Then they get ambushed by a bunch of undead forces. The writer is separated from the rest of the group. General Dan is killed by Necron, by using a dark spell. Solomon is captured by the undead. And the rest of the soldiers and mages have perished. The writer eventually goes insane because he could not find his way out of the catacombs, and he describes the rooms as moving around and rearranging themselves, a reference to how each dungeon is randomly generated. Sadan, the boss of the 6th floor, was originally in the expedition group sent to the catacombs. He meets the Watcher, and seems to be the only one who can feel its presence, having a strong connection with him. Sadan escapes the battle, but the Watcher follows him. The Watcher reads his mind, and apparently convinces him to join the Wither Lord. After this battle, the undead begin planning their next move. The zombies think about sending Storm after the castle. By the way, Storm is a guy on floor 9 who could destroy an island. The zombies theorize that it is only a matter of time until the kingdom realizes that the expedition is dead, and that they will send more forces after them. They want to rule the human world, and think that they should attack the castle before it can attack them. That's where the journal ends. The last journal was added on August, and there have been no more for 2 months. So it might be safe to assume this is all the lore we have. Since there is a bunch of ruins in the hub, all we can assume is that the humans lost this fight. It is now infested with Svins because a mad scientist there invented them. And it went wrong. This part looks like it was broken off. The more you look at it, the more you notice how it looks like part of something bigger, that no longer exists. For all I know, this could have been a courtyard, hundreds of years ago, bustling with kingdom life. Maybe Storm destroyed this area. If you look at Necron's description, it says he has ruled the catacombs for eons. Most likely it isn't referring to the eon which lasts 1 billion years, but it's still a pretty long time. So we know it has been hundreds or even thousands of years since the journals were made. The kingdom is long gone. The Skyblock hub village is built, long after these events. Most likely, the village wasn't around while all this happened. The king is replaced by democracy. Instead of having a real king sending out soldiers to deal with undead, you have this. It is possible that General Dan is actually Golder from floor 8. As they are both described as battle veterans, and were affected by withers. In one of the journals, the walls to be exact, the narrator creates a basic map so he kind of knows where he is going. Every time you start a dungeon, the dungeon starter guy, gives you a map, saying he found it the first time he went into the catacombs. Maybe the map you are using originated from hundreds of years ago, found in the hands of the long-dead writer of the journal, by Mort. Originally, it was thought that the character from The Apprentice Part 1 and Part 2 were both Necron, but most likely they are different people. In Part 1, the character is introduced as a dark brooding man, Necron, but in Part 2 it is reintroduced as a young man. Plus they have different intentions. The character in Part 1 is willing to learn dark magic, while in Part 2 the character is reluctant to break into a vault with dark magic. For some reason, people say the character in Part 2 is Scarf. It is thought that the man who gave Scarf the scroll is the professor, as the professor and Scarf were in a pretty good relationship. There's just one plot hole, however. The description of Maxer says he is only starting to wither, after 500 years. It has only been 400 years between Necron being a student and Necron turning into a Wither Lord. How? What? And there are still so many questions left. How did Necron turn into a Wither Lord? How did he meet K-Man? What was the calamity? Maybe it has something to do with all the fairies dying. What happened to Solomon? Who are the Shadow Assassins? Lost adventurers, angry archaeologists. Does the Wizard and Wizard Tower have anything to do with this? But most importantly, who the hell is K-Man? Admins, if you are watching this, tell me how accurate these theories are. We notice you haven't made that much lore for a month or two. Please continue this story. It's pretty interesting. Anyways, that's all for today. I am only 7,000 subscribers away from 30k. What happens at 30k? I don't really know. But subscribe anyways for my YouTube rank speedrun. Goodbye.